friends, welcome back to flight level 070. I am Utkarsh and today we will be performing circuit and landings on the Airbus A320. I am an Airbus A320 type rated pilot, and for reference I will be using the flight crew operating manual. This is an auto training video and I am making this video so that whoever is going for the Airbus A320 type rating or who is already type rated on the aircraft can review the procedures. I'd be dividing the video in two parts, that is, I'll be briefing the circuit and then I'd be performing the circuit on the flight simulator. Okay, so let's discuss a normal takeoff. The pilot flying will make the standard call out takeoff and advance the thrust levers to 50% N1 or 1.05 EPR. He'll push the side stick half forward until reaching 80 knots, and from 80 knots to 100 knots gradually get the side stick to neutral, release the brakes and advance the thrust levers to the takeoff setting of flex or the toga detent. Once the takeoff thrust is set, the PIC will keep his hands on the thrust levers until reaching V1. My recommendation is, as soon as you set the thrust, start the chrono, because I have seen a lot of people forget to start the chrono, and the importance of starting the chrono is that in case you have an engine failure, you know when was the takeoff thrust set. So it is very important that you start the chrono at the right time, and then you use the rudders to maintain the center line and scan the PND and the ND. The pilot flying will read the FMA and the pilot monitoring will cross check and announce checked. Then before reaching 80 knots, the thrust should be set and the pilot monitoring will make the standard call out thrust set. Then on reaching 100 knots, the pilot monitoring will announce 100 knots and the pilot flying will cross check on his PFD for any discrepancies of airspeed and reply checked. At reaching V1, the pilot monitoring will announce V1. At VR, he'll announce rotate, and the pilot flying will perform a rotation of about 3 degrees per second to a pitch up attitude of 15 degree. And as soon as you lose the horizon, you get your head down, transition to the PFD and follow the SRS orders. As soon as you see the vertical speed increasing, the pilot monitoring will announce positive climb and the pilot flying will request gear up, and the pilot monitoring will select the landing gear lever up. Okay, once you're airborne and the landing gear is up, the FCOM recommends connecting the autopilot, but in circuits I doubt that anyone will recommend you to use the autopilot since it's more of a hand flying session. So I'll be using the CRM in accordance with the autopilot disconnected. So the pilot flying will basically be requesting the pilot monitoring to make any changes on the FCU. So after the landing gear is up and you're airborne, the pilot flying will request the pilot monitoring to pull runway heading, and a good suggestion my instructors told me was to call out the exact heading. So let's say if you're taking off from runway 27, you would call out pull runway heading 270, so that there's no confusion, there's more situational awareness, and there's no misunderstanding between you and the other pilot. Then once you're at the thrust reduction altitude, you will get the thrust levers to the climb detent, and you'll call out the FMA. One more thing, from here onwards, any change in the FMA is a mandatory call out. So when I'm in the simulator, we'll follow that procedure, and I want all of you to follow the same. Any changes to the FMA will be a mandatory call out. And then once you're at the acceleration altitude, you'll pull S speed. Once again, I'd recommend that you call out the particular speed. So let's say S speed is 184 knots. So the call out will be pull S speed 184 knots. Then once you're level, you request the pilot monitoring to set downwind heading 090, and you'll start following the flight directors, and on the crosswind leg you'll perform the after takeoff climb checklist. And once you're on the downwind leg and the wings are level, as a mental checklist that you can go through, and There are 5 things you need to do there. First is autopilot off. If you connected autopilot, disconnect autopilot. Then both FDs off. Then bird on, that is the track flight path angle. And you reset the downwind track because now you're going from heading to the track mode. And activate the approach phase and manage speed. Okay, on reaching midfield downwind, report the ATC, perform the approach checklist, and once above the threshold, start the chrono. It will be 3 seconds for every 100 feet plus minus 1 second for every knot of head or tailwind. So in our case, we don't have any winds and we are at 1500 feet AGL, so 45 seconds. At 30 seconds, request flap 2. At 42 seconds, request set final track 270, and at 45 start turning onto the base leg and maintaining a rate of descent of approximately 300 feet per minute. Once flap 2, request gear down, and once gear down, flap 3. Then visually check your glide path, and also when you need to start turning onto the finals, do not exceed maximum bank angle of more than 30 degrees. 25 degrees should be good. And once on finals, request full flaps and rate of descent of approximately 700 feet per minute. Then you perform the landing checklist, and you need to be stabilized by 500 feet since it's a visual circuit, and the stabilization criteria is your vertical flight path is stabilized, and you're in the landing configuration at V approach, and the thrust is stabilized a little above idle. And once you're over the runway at 30 feet, thrust levers to idle, and you perform a conventional flare. Then once you touch down, the spoilers will come up, the pilot monitoring will announce spoilers, and the pilot flying will apply reverse thrust, and the pilot monitoring will announce a reverse green after looking at the engine and warning display. Then once you feel the deceleration and you look at the speed trend, pilot monitoring will announce decel. At 70 knots, pilot monitoring call out 70 knots, and the pilot flying will get the thrust to reverse idle. At 30 knots, the pilot flying will get the thrust to forward idle. So that is all, and let's go to the flight simulator to practice this.
Takeoff. Man flex 49, SRS runway, auto thrust blue.
Check. Thrust set. $100 knots.
Checked.
P1. Rotate. Positive climb.
Gear up.
Gear up.
Pull runway heading 270.
Heading 270.
Checked. Speed alt star auto thrust.
Check.
Pull S speed 194 knots.
Speed 194 knots.
Checked. Set downwind heading 090.
Heading 090.
Checked. After takeoff climb checklist.
Landing gear.
Up.
Flaps.
1 plus F.
Backs.
On.
Down to the line.
Below the line.
Aero ref.
QNH 1013 set.
QNH 1013 set. Landing lights.
On.
After takeoff, climb checklist complete.
Autopilot off. FDs off. Bird on. Reset downwind track 090. Activate approach phase. Manage speed.
Speed 143 Mahinta.
Checked.
Flight level 070 reporting midfield downwind.
Flight level 070, clear to land runway 27.
Clear to land runway 27.
Beam the threshold, start the chrono. Approach checklist.
Briefing.
Confirmed.
ECAM status.
Checked.
Seat belts.
On.
Baro ref.
QNH 1013 set.
QNH 1013 set. Minimum
500 feet set.
500 feet set. Engine mode selector.
Normal.
Landing lights.
On.
Approach checklist complete.
Flap 2.
Speed check. Flap 2.
Set final track 270.
Track 270.
Checked. Gear down.
Gear down.
Speed, 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 speed.
Flaps 3.
Speed check. Flaps 3.
One thousand.
Flaps full.
Speed check. Flaps full.
Landing checklist.
Cabin crew.
Advised.
Auto thrust.
Speed.
Auto brake.
Medium.
ECAM memo.
Landing no blue.
100 above.
Landing checklist complete.
500 minimum.
Stabilized.
400. 300. 200. 100. 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20. Retard. 5.
Spoilers. Reverse green. Diesel. $70 knots.
Checked.
I hope you enjoyed the session. I'd love to get your inputs. Please leave your comments down below, send me emails, like the video if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much.